Welcome back. I am so excited to introduce and talk to my next guest. Based in New York City, Brett Bailey is a dog trainer and behavior expert that has dedicated his entire career to helping dogs and their people build happier lives together. He's been doing it for over 15 years with his real focus on how dogs think, canine cognition, engaging them, and he prioritizes what dogs need versus what human wants. Brett, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I have to read your quote first because it just rocks. So on Brett's website, he opens it with a quote that of his own. Every human wants the perfect dog. It's now time to give your dog a perfect human. I mean, how better said is it?
I came out
that?
strong with the word perfect. I probably should adjust that a little bit.
No, it's great. Shoot, like to me, it's absolutely true because people call me up with a puppy and say, I want a perfect puppy. And I'm like, well, I hate to break it to you, but there is no perfect. Like if you get a retriever, they're not going to sleep all day. If you get a bulldog, they're not going to fetch all day. So it really depends on your version. And nobody's perfect, right? I mean, everybody's a balance of good and bad. And it's helping our clients to understand the good in their dog, helping them bring it out. That's so important. And I spent a lot of time on YouTube just watching you transform these dogs. Tell me how you got started in dog training.
Oh man, so and obviously with like many things in life, as you know, it started over a girl. I used to be a strength coach, and that was my industry. And I was dating a girl lived in Brooklyn, and I couldn't, after dating her for 6 months, I couldn't get in her apartment because her dogs wouldn't let me in. And that was difficult. So I actually went and looked for a book on dog training. And there was a book by Terry Ryan called Coaching People to Train Your Dogs.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I have it upstairs.
Of course, because it's a study guide for the CCBDT, and I had no idea, right? So that was like my first book I'm reading because I'm thinking I have to coach her to train her dog. And with everything I got from there, obviously, when I first started reading it, it just, I didn't really understand everything I was reading because it wasn't my industry.
Right.
But then I really started taking I took it very serious, and let's just say within 6 months I moved in. and next thing,
and the dogs loved you.
They loved me, and I grew a passion for it. I started working with rescues. I started working with my friends' dogs. I started taking courses, the webinars, things like that. But it was very challenging because a lot of the stuff that I was doing, there's not when it comes to training dogs, especially in New York City, there's more of a need for behavioral. Right. Nobody cares about obedience. They just want their dog to be socially accepted, and that's it. Like my dog won't drag me up the block, and it can stand on line anywhere we go.
And
right?
It won't bite.
It won't bite.
Anybody.
It won't exactly. Like it could share an elevator.
Right.
And the thing is everything I was learning wasn't working. Nothing made sense. It didn't transfer. You know what I mean? So I took courses. I took courses at ABC Animal Behavior College. I did all kinds of things, but nothing was transferring over. And then I realized, well, I had to just understand dogs better.
Right.
So everything that I've learned went to just more understanding dogs. And now we're talking about understanding, more of the cognitive side. Right. So I started with the Jack Pansek's research with the neuroscience.
The five blue ribbon emotions.
Blue ribbon emotions. Yeah,
exactly.
That was a huge piece. And then you go deeper into understanding when it comes to stress. What's her name? Christina Spalding has an amazing book called The Stress Factor. I recommend everybody to read it. It may not change. It's not about methods, but it's about understanding.
Right.
You know what I mean? And help you build resilience dogs and things like that. So everything I was learning was more about understanding the why behind everything. someone says, don't repeat a command, why?
Right.
Why don't I, and I can actually explain why, but the more I understood dogs, the easier it was for me to formulate plans to help them.
Right.
Individual
plans.
Individual plans.
Based on the
Absolutely.
age and the breed and the temperament of the person as well as the dog.
Yeah, and one of the things that many dog trainers, I just did a workshop with a bunch of dog trainers, but many dog trainers don't actually understand how to do a formal assessment. Many people don't know what you need to know, during an assessment. When you were assessing, the dog's resilience, the dog's level of arousal, the dog's spatial awareness, how the dog uses space, how the dog takes in the world, and then a lot of times when we're doing the assessment, we should know what's affecting the assessment. Is the dog hungry? Is the dog over-exercised? There's so many things, you know what I mean?
Right,
that may, what's the dog triggered yesterday? So when we're building a plan for these dogs, that assessment is a huge factor. Right. And then, and it all goes back to understanding canine behavior, understanding the dog. Cause you're not going to know how to do an assessment or understand the assessment if you don't understand the dog,
right.
And the challenge is, I think many people, especially nowadays, I'm sure this, there's a lot of YouTube trainers, and the thing is, a lot of people are getting their education from social media. They're getting their education from YouTube. And that's not necessarily the way to go. That may teach you a few methods, but methods are interchangeable.
And I find, like you said, if you focus on the dog and you're using all these different methods, and I've seen it, I live kind of in a village. I have neighbors that, pick and choose, cherry pick. One day it's a prong, the next day it's a clicker. One day they're telling the dog it's bad. The next day they're speaking in a squeaky voice. Like, the dog's brain doesn't have anywhere to settle, and they don't feel safe because they can't develop a rhythmic predictability with the people that are caring for them.
Absolutely. I think that, a lot of times I love dogs, but a lot of times I think we put too much on them, thinking that, not realizing their brains.
It's the size of a nut. It's the size of a nut, people. I'm constantly saying to my client, remember, it's just a dog. It's just a dog. 80% of their brain is sensory neurons. They're built to respond to sensory, shifts in sound. Exactly.
People don't realize. I had people, and I have to tell them this. This is like, I don't know if this goes back to whatever shows about dogs, but people actually are under the impression that you should exercise a dog before a training session. But if you do that, their energy is going to be spent on the exercise when you need their energy spent on their brain processing the information. Right. So now you just stop your dog from processing information. You know what I mean? And there's like I said, there's so many factors. Like, I talk to my clients about the dog's sleep. Is your dog getting good sleep?
Oh my God. That is the first thing I do, is put every single dog I meet on a sleep diet. I always tell my clients they're crepuscular. They're only awake 25% of the day. You are overstimulating the dog, and you're dealing with an overtired toddler with teeth.
Well, here's what I tell people. And yes, a toddler with teeth. I tell people, how are you when you don't get good sleep? And
exactly. We're speaking the same language.
It's logic. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, why would your dog be that different?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
My dog gets sleep. So we actually, something I do after every training session, the training becomes a routine, right? We have a certain routine. And after the training, we actually put the dog in a bed and let the dog relax, for like 45 minutes, just so the dog can, decompress,
Process what it learned.
Absolutely.
In its little walnut-sized brain. Yes.
That's exactly it.
It's amazing. I breed very rarely, once a year. So I have a Havanese, and we kept a puppy from the litter. And from the time they were 3 weeks, they were surface trained. I crate trained them at about 7 weeks. They went home this past weekend with a strict schedule that is basically they're up for an hour and a half, feed them out to potty and play, and then they go to bed. They're only up for like, when they're little, they're only up for an hour and a half, and they sleep for like 4 to 6 hours right after 12 hours. They need 20 hours. Their brain is developing. And
People don't get that.
They don't. And if you start overstimulating a puppy, it's going to be an emotional tornado.
It's a problem.
It's a problem right away. And
don't forget the joints. They need sleep for their joints.
And I always say those first 12 weeks are the imprinting phase. The brain is growing, then the teeth fall out, then the teeth, and they grow up, and then they go out. And that's a full year, year and a half of intense internal, stimulation. It's exhausting to grow. Yeah, I love it. I mean, we're speaking the same gospel, and I find very few trainers do.
You know what? The one thing when it comes to puppies, and people, I'm gonna say, what I'm about to say to you, when it comes to puppies, isn't casual. Okay, it's actually serious, and that's play. People don't get, and play. People think, oh, I'm gonna play a puppy. No. Play is literally, not figuratively, how puppies learn.
It's not like a stuffed animal with a heartbeat. It is a being that needs to learn boundaries and needs to play differently than you do. Anyhow, it's the same
Absolutely.
thing.
But now, what I would say is raising a puppy in New York City.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
It's different, and I'm going to be honest. It's not like I'm like, oh, this is going to be, no, there's nothing easy about it, right? You and I'm going to tell you the most difficult thing about raising a puppy in New York City. Number one, if you have certain genetics, you just have a lifetime of management, right? So don't bring an Aussie to New York City.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. Like what do you want me to do?
It's going to want to chase everything.
Cars, skateboards, you kidding me? So there's certain things that's like, if you have a Doberman, you may want to be careful if you live in a big building because there's so many sounds in the hallway. Genetics are going to kick in, right?
Right.
But so you have to understand, meet the dog and understand this is what you're signing up for. But let's get a little more into it. The most difficult thing is potty training. Okay. Number one, you have to go down flights of stairs.
Right. They have no bladder control when they're
little. Are you kidding me? So you're carrying your dog, and then you better be fit because you're carrying your puppy until your puppy. You better be fit. And you better be committed because if you don't, you need to potty train your puppy before your puppy gets too big to carry.
Right.
Right. It's a race. So the thing is, and then but then the problem is once your dog goes outside, right? It's a challenge because it's go time. Once you go outside, it's overstimulated. So you don't want to stress your puppy out either. But that's the first thing, right? And everybody struggles with that. And I'm just like, here's the concept.
Here's the ideal. Yeah. Now let's see what you do with it.
Good luck, right? So then the next piece is that every dog trainer, a lot of dog trainers talk about engagement, which is a good thing. I talk about engagement. It's on my website. A certain level of engagement in New York City can get you in trouble with a puppy because you need the puppy to look at the world and realize you're better. But you can't do that unless your puppy looks at the world. Right. Right? So if you got your puppy constantly staring at you, eventually when he's not looking, he's like, oh my God, I want this. And the thing is, so that piece is huge. Like, your puppy needs the freedom to explore in a safe way, and you need the ability to interrupt your puppy and realize, by the way, I have the cash. I have the cash. If you have your dog, if everybody on that street freaks out over your puppy, right? Then eventually you're going to have a conditioned response to your dog seeing people and dragging you up the block. Right. And that's everywhere. So it's really, really dangerous. You do not have the ability to control distance, right? So the stakes are higher. right? I'm walking past the dog. So you need neutral dogs in this dog's life.
Right.
So, that just aren't creating the stimulation. And you have to obviously, with the critical socialization period, you have to take your dog in every single environment in New York City as possible. So anybody who gets a puppy in New York City and doesn't buy a wagon, you're out of your mind, right? You get a wagon, you put your puppy in the wagon, go to the subway station, start feeding your dog to Comet, go to the water, go here, go everywhere you go. But so, and that's what I did with my dog. I took her everywhere in a wagon, and then.
Now, what kind of wagon are you talking about? Like a little red wagon, or one of the ones that have like a zipper?
A fold-up wagon that little I had a wagon because in 2020 I used to put all my fitness equipment on there, and I'd literally wheel it to the park, and I'd work out, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I got this for my dog now.
Yeah. You know what I use, and I wonder if you've ever used it, especially with the little ones. I put them in a sling and just take them, and also those canvas tents that you kind of, they're octangular type of things.
I haven't used that. I like wagons because it literally evolves into a place bed.
Oh, right.
So I'm doing all my exercises that I'm doing the place bed, but with an 8-week, 9, 10-week-old puppy.
Right.
And then people will, when they come over, that's my bubble. I don't let them, not unless you're invited or whatever. So it works out really, really, really well. The slings, some dogs work out well and some dogs don't like it. The problem with the sling is the dogs they're restricted sometimes. And with the wrong dog, they could experience no option of flight. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
So you have to be careful. It'll work with 100 dogs, but then one dog, if they don't have flight.
Well, and you don't want to develop fear of things because you hear them and you're processing fear, and you don't have to face that fear.
Exactly. With the wagon, they feel free.
I want you to send me a picture of this wagon you use because I'm going to borrow on that.
Yeah, I'll send you a video. I have it.
Awesome.
I was all over social media with my wagon, and then but that's a huge factor. We in the city you have. Oh, by the way, I screwed up. You're never going to get everything right with a puppy. The one thing I screwed up with was I took her to Jersey, and let her play in the grass, and she started having anxiety, and I was like, what the hell? Because it was too quiet.
Oh,
I was like, well, I would have never seen it coming. I called up my friend who was an ethologist, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And they explained it to me in scientific terms. I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So I had to literally condition the quiet area. Like, she was just like, doesn't know what to do. Was freaking out, crying. I'm like, oh my gosh, so that's
a friend of mine's dog, the square one, but it's the same thing. It's
very
sensory disconnect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about people. I have a lot of clients, and we're kind of Upper Westchester and Fairfield County, and they have 2 homes. And many of them moved to this country home during the pandemic. We trained the dog, beautiful 3-acre estates or just, quiet. And now they want to start going back to the city, but they find their dogs are completely freaking out. And they just thought that they would put him in the car, drive him, take him out, take him into the apartment. And so now we're having to switch from one gear to another. They would like it overnight, but I have to keep explaining that it's going to be a process. How often do you see that?
I get phone calls all the time for people that are about to move into New York City. And honestly, I usually need 4 to 6 months to prepare the dog.
You've got to be kidding me. My God.
You could do it quicker, but you better be aggressive, So the first thing we do is we eliminate the backyard, right? Because you don't have backyard. Central Park's your backyard. You ain't got one, right? So now you're forced to take the dog on walks, Well, now you need to now you need to figure out your relationship on a leash, because we don't want to ruin
Right.
that, right? Because so many people, leash is poison. But anyways, let's continue. So now that you're taking your dog on walks, you may want to have your dog not do its business on grass and maybe in the street. Why?
Right.
Because you don't have grass, right? In most areas, right? So I know people that actually have to walk 10 blocks to a park for their dog because there's grass. Their dog won't do their
Exactly.
business. You don't want that. Okay. The next thing is you want to go into you want to condition elevators, right? Elevators and stairs and hallways. So some dogs will, the texture
it's
may
too
not be
narrow.
comfortable, the small area. So, that's something that you may want to take a trip to a random building and just do your best.
I do it with the dogs here.
Yeah,
I know two buildings that have an elevator and a stairwell.
Exactly. So, and that's a real thing. So then the next thing is, and I tell everybody, bus stops, right?
Interesting.
Buses are loud.
That
Exactly.
hissing.
There's usually a lot of people there. Do your training at bus stops. Once you have your training complete at a bus stop, the dog has the ability to relax at a bus stop. Then you're going to go to dog parks, not
Right.
inside the park.
Not inside.
But be able to have your dog to be able to relax within a distance of your dog park, maybe right next to the dog park, because your dog needs to be able to be comfortable with distance.
Right.
Then, so then we make sure, in the process of all this, we make sure we condition a strong, positive interrupter, right? A lot of people hate me for it, but because I live in New York City, I use a clicker as a positive interrupter. I don't use it to really mark a reward, but then again, at the same time, at the end of the day, depending on what you're doing, it doesn't even matter.
Right.
But interrupting, rewarding, whatever, that's a whole nother conversation. But what happens is a clicker is so consistent and can pierce through any sound, right? A dog will whip its head anywhere in New York City. Your voice may not be as strong because you've been talking to your dog, right?
Right.
Without you or whatever. So a clicker always predicts value. So when you have a positive interrupter, it's much easier to interrupt your dog from doing any unwanted behavior.
Yeah.
And just reel your dog back in. So those are my advice to people that are moving to New York City.
What do you feel are the most important commands? I always tell people when they're in my training class, at the end of the class, or if I'm working with them, dogs don't need to know every word in the book. They don't need to know tricks. I find tricks fun, but if they don't light up your brain, it's not necessary. But you want to pick those 5 to 10 words that are going to light up their brain and that you need to rely on for your conversation.
What I'm going to say is going to be a little different.
Say it.
First of all, I actually tell everybody that it's not a command, it's an opportunity.
Interesting.
Right? So if the people view it as an opportunity, like when I say heel, that's an opportunity for my dog. If my dog doesn't take the opportunity, what does that tell me? My dog's providing me information. Hey, that wasn't worth it. You know what I mean? So I need to up my game. Right? So what I need to make sure that that's an opportunity. And if the dog doesn't listen, then that's feedback. Okay. So now number one, I think interrupting your dog, whether it's its name or just getting your dog's attention, that is huge. That's the number one thing. Right. So I can go, heel, my dog will whip its head, come around. I can say Saga, she'll just look up like what's next. Right. That being said, the second thing is I like to say a word that predicts fun.
Right.
It's not a command, but it's a conditioned response. So, for example, what I do is when I'm about to get the food, I'll go ready, and then I'll go get the food. I won't get the food and go ready. I'll go ready, and then I'll get the food. When I'm about to play tug, I go ready, and then I get the tug toy. So now if I'm outside and I go ready, dog whips its head, go, what do we got? I'm like, absolutely nothing. I just don't want you to look at that. Here, come here. You know what I mean? So that cue is opening up, hey, listen, something great's about to happen, and it's coming from me, right? So I like to use a right? Now let me talk about that. I go Now a lot of times what happens is my dog is going to sniff something that I don't want my dog to sniff, right? And I don't want to go Saga, you know what I mean? Because that, man, I don't, but I know I'm not going to think to put her in a position, so I go right? Because it's natural for me to say that in that situation. Now the question is, how do you teach that, right? Because you don't want to you teach a puppy, you don't want to be aversive, right? What I do is I play with her, on the floor, and during my play, if she gets too bitey, I go, and I stand up. And once she calms down again, I go back on the floor. That literally transfers over. Now, when I go, she just stops whatever she's doing, right? Which is so good, because from 40 feet away, if I see her head go down and to eat something, I'm like, and she'll be like, okay, all right, I'm not going to do it, which is fine. But,
well, what I love about that, I was at some workshop, and the woman who was talking about pet therapy, and she's like, I don't like leave it, because when you say leave it, it scares the older people. And I just raised my hand, and I'm like, what if you just say it in a normal voice? Like leave it. Doesn't scare anybody. And the dog learns. She just looked at me for a second. She's like, okay. Because I have a bunch of dogs. I take puppies in to get them house trained when they're little. And I just don't raise my voices. Again, it's a dog. Like, what is that I want my dog's safest place in the world to be near me. And I want to always engage them and have fun with them and play games, because then the funnest place to be in the world is also near me. Mm-hmm. And I find yelling creates like a wedge of understanding between us, because suddenly I'm loving and then I'm yelling. And they'll associate that yelling to playing too rough with a kid. That's a situation that provokes excited, predatory play or rough interaction. So it's going to make the problem worse, not better. If the dog jumps on the counter and I shout, then it's prize envy. And the dog learns to go when it's out of the room, when I'm out of the room, my back is turned. So I think it's interesting what you tap into is like, even when you're saying, it's not, it's not like shouting. It's just a word that means you just lost the privilege to play with me.
I have a client who's a comedian, and we train his dog, and he said he wants all his cues to be different cereals. Okay, so it was so funny. So the no cue, the was Rice Krispies, right? So he would literally be like, Rice Krispies, and he couldn't say it. Like, his dog would be like, huh? You know what I mean? Like, it was just so funny. And he'd be like Cheerios, and the dog would do a middle, right? And whatever. So, but it was just really funny. But for that reason, it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, people put poison on words. It doesn't matter what you say, just whatever. But listen, to your question, I think a heel is good, because you can manage your dog if you need to go through crowds, right? And your dog could, but that's going to help management. I think a recall is good for every dog. But the thing is, if you're in a park, that's great for off-leash hours, but some people will never have to recall their dog in New York City because they're never going to have their dog off-leash. But that being said, you should practice it for the time that you do want that, right? Or just have your positive.
I think come is something that I play train. Like, to me, come should mean we're together, not apart. So I start people hand targeting, and then I tell them to say, touch come, and teach them that come means they've reconnected. It's like huddle. And then we work backwards. But all my dogs, when I come home, I have a back gate, and as they're all running up to me, I'll say, come. Just come means we're together. So they love it. Yeah. It makes their tail wag.
Absolutely. Well, here's the deal. If there's an oxytocin release when you're together with your dog, you know what I mean? I mean, some people, you have to have that relationship. That's the one thing. But I like teaching the middle position, The reason why is because you can't bring a place bed wherever you go, or a mat, right? A mat is a fixed position. When a dog is on a mat, the dog has clarity. This is what I'm going to do. I'm safe. But if you put if your dog's in a stressful situation, the middle, the dog goes in the middle, your dog is now in a fixed position and can feel safe, and you can control the environment.
Right.
Right? So that's a good one, especially if someone's scared of dogs. Middle, you know what I mean? That's okay, so on and so forth. So I also, with reactive dogs, one of the best things you can teach a dog is a hands up cue, right? Paws up. I love teaching that because it looks so funny. I had a Doberman, I was reactive, and he'd go, paws up, and it would literally put its paws on the wall, and I would just be feeding out of my hand saying, we're good. Take care. As he's got his paws on the wall, all these dogs walking by, I'm like, have a great day, but, but things come in handy,
Well, and it's interesting because there's a lot of things you prioritize that, living in the country and having dogs have a backyard and dogs have freedom, I might not prioritize for the same reasons because it's different.
Exactly.
It's just different.
It's so different, I actually think, in my opinion, and it's more difficult to train dogs in the suburbs because owners could tolerate more because they have backyards.
Just put them outside.
Yeah. So what happens is the dog doesn't get the work when it needs it, and then it builds up, and then you come in and it's like, all right, we got a lot of work cut out for us. You know what I mean? So for me, they call us quicker because they have to share an elevator or walk down a hallway, and they're like, I need help. You know, and a lot of them are going to put the work in. You for your clients that have to put in the work, you have to deliver it artistically.
Right.
You got it. Yeah, and they have to be reinforced right away. They have to be like, dude, this works, right? My clients will put in the work for self-preservation.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't need to sell it. I'm like, you're going to do this, this, this. They're like, okay, that's it.
It's funny you say that because I'll work with the client and I'll come back and they don't always do the work, or they'll hire me, which actually is effective. They'll hire me to come for an intensive 3 times a week, 5 times if they can get me. It's pretty rare that I'm ever have that much free time, but I come in every day at like 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock and I work with the dog. And then, I spend a couple sessions transferring that over. And it surprisingly works quite well because I'm just reshaping a behavior and any pick from any of the above, and then kind of showing them what I did. But still, I'm less likely to get follow-up because it is just easier to leave the dog in the backyard or leave the dog home. They don't have these stimuli bombarding them every time they get outside the door. And if they walk the dog, it's maybe once a day, maybe a few times a week. It's totally different experience.
Let me tell you something. I had a celebrity client. I had to sign an NDA. I can't say who it was. And they hired me. They gave me their key. A couple people have done this. They gave me the key. They said, just come in whenever you can, train the dog. I was like, kidding me? Absolutely. They're paying for my parking. I'm there like every day, right? Now, this dog was a serious case. It actually bit one of the children in the face and actually jumped through the door. Like it was a pretty heavy case. And all my dog trainer friends said, they're not going to put in the work. I said, no, they told me to put in the work, and I'm going to do it. I said, I get it. That sounds crazy. And I went there probably 5-6 days a week for about 4 or 5 months. And I got this dog to a point where it was just, the behaviors were gone. Like we just didn't, whatever. But I kept going. And the training sessions turn into literally just enrichment activities for an hour, right? They stopped using me because everything was good. And then the behaviors started coming back. So they started using me again. They literally kept me going there. And all I had to do was just provide enrichment, biological fulfillment, and decompression. There was no training. It's just the thing is, when I wasn't there, the dog wasn't getting that outlet. Behavior issues kept coming, right? So literally, I mean, it sounds so crazy, but sometimes when you get to the point, like with what you did, the 3 times a week, this and that, all you need to maintain it, enrichment, biological fulfillment, decompression, those 3 things. And a lot of times, whatever you taught the dog is going to stick. You know what I mean? And that's what happened with this dog. And for a very long time, I was just getting paid to play with a dog. It's crazy.
I recall when I was first starting out, there was much more, I had more time. So when I do these cases, I literally tell the people, I can't do this for that long a period of time, and they have to sign something for me that they will like follow up. And for me, it's so much people training. And if people aren't willing to do the work, the dog suffers. I had a case, wonderful people. They went to a breeder that just is just selling dogs to anybody, not temperament testing. They got a very active border collie type puppy. He's in his 90s. She's in his 70s. He had dogs. She didn't, but she had to do all the upkeep. And they sent it to my imprinting program, but for a couple of weeks, and we all fell in love with this dog, right? And they stay with us. I only do one at a time. They come live with us, live with my family. And this dog went back to the people, and it broke my heart. I went there a few weeks later, and it was literally going crazy. I mean, because they couldn't keep up with it. They didn't know what to do, and the dog was biting. And the people were wonderful. The dog was wonderful. And I did recommend rehoming because they had a little tiny apartment. They couldn't walk the dog all the time. And now the dog's living with a family with 3 people. I mean, they came to that decision, but I didn't unsupport it because I do think some dogs are placed in the wrong house. And having foster dogs for so long, I had, I call her my little ocean. She's my daughter. She's now 19. But when we fostered the dog, I could see the dog was not comfortable with toddlers, you know? And there is an element of responsibility to me, both for the dog, like dogs can go crazy if they're screamed at all day or not given any enrichment, or the enrichment is, you know, using the children or the people like an animated squeak toy. So it's a heavy burden we carry, you know, to both to the dog and to the people. I don't know why I'm saying this, but
no, you're absolutely right though. You know, and with that knowledge, hopefully it inspires them to put in the work.
It does. I put it on the table.
Yeah, and the thing that people have to realize, right? The training is not the 1 hour you're with the dog. It's the 20 to 23 hours around the clock.
It's not a 10-minute period.
No.
Twice a day.
If I go to gym for an hour, sure I may get results, but not if the rest of my day doesn't complement that. Sleep, nutrition, getting in a parasympathetic state, like, you know, relaxation. And dogs are the same exact thing. And, you know, to be completely honest, I actually like my clients to train their dogs several times a day, 90 to seconds to 2 minutes at a time.
Exactly.
Just quick, done. That's it. You know, and people, I think one of the biggest problems is people go to the point where their dog doesn't. They stop when the dog stops. No, stop when the dog loves it the most. Stop, because then your dog's like, oh, I wanted to do more. Now you can go on a walk. Your dog has your complete engagement. You know what I mean? Like, what's the problem? You know, but I think even more important than those things, when it comes to New York City, you have to build resilience. So if you're a dog trainer in New York City, you have to really understand the difference between eustress and de-stress and how stress works, because you need that to build a resilient dog, because there's so much stress.
Talk to us about that, or me and the audience here.
So when I get a puppy, I bring the puppy outside, and you're going to see a response. Puppy's going to be like, oh my gosh, right? And I time it. I get my timer out, right? And I start clocking it, and I see how long until the puppy gets stressed. I do it one time. I bring the puppy right back inside, right? and this is what's going to happen when a puppy doesn't know
You
New York
mean
City.
the duration of time they're stressed, or
Yeah, no. How long until they get stressed? So you bring one of your dogs that haven't been in New York City, they come back. How long can they handle outside before they're stressed out? Sometimes it's 30 seconds, sometimes it's 2 minutes. But at the beginning, it's never really more than that. So I see how long until they get stressed. I bring them inside. The next time I decrease that by 30 seconds, right? So if the dog can last 2 minutes outside, we go inside in a minute and 30 seconds, right? We make sure that minute and 30 seconds is phenomenal, right? Then we go back inside. We try to continue to extend that time. By the time we get to a few minutes, usually we're in much better shape and we can just go. But the bottom line is you need a few minutes just to get to a park or just to get to I live in front of a bus stop. You're kidding me? I go outside. It's absolutely crazy. So we start with measuring it. Measuring, because we want to make sure the dog isn't under enough stress where it can't handle it. We are keeping you below that stress mark.
Right. Now, I have a client. I'm likely going to send her to you because she wants me to come into the city, and I'm a little busy for that. But she has 2 rescue dogs. One is, a mountain dog. The other is a mixed breed. And the mixed breed is feral-like before I came. Fears being outside, doesn't respond, is very wary of people. My guess is that it's a southern transport that was captured, with the mother, without the mother, and brought in after that critical period, because any sound, any movement causes reactivity. And again, their goal is, we want to meet with you Wednesday, go into the city on Saturday. And I'm like, whoa. Now,
Don't come here on a Saturday.
Yeah, I'm like, I envision that the dog will come outside and immediately go into a fear response. There won't be any pause.
Okay, so in a situation like that, we need to, there's so many levels before the dog gets outside. Now, the question is how does the dog respond when you grab the leash? Likely, stress increases, okay? Then you go out the door. Bam, the door's another increase. Now you're going in the hallway, right? And then down the stairs or the elevator. On next level of increase. Now you're in the foyer. Next level increase. Now you go out the door. This dog had no shot, right? So what do? Right? And that's a good question, by the way. You start off by getting the leash, going right outside your hallway, training the dog, going back inside. Now the dog's going to be like, oh, wait, when we go out that door and you got the leash, it doesn't mean we're going outside. So now you got this, you do this for a whole week. Then week 2, grab the leash, dog's in the hallway, like, you were doing this? And you're like, no. Now you're going down the foyer. Dog's like, what's going on? You're like, I'm here to train.
Right.
Dog's like, no shit, right? Then right when you're done with that, you go upstairs. Go home. You need to go out. Now the thing is you're doing this several times a day, just quick sessions, right?
Yeah.
Then finally you get to the point where the dog's like in the foyer right before the outside door going, we're training. Then you go outside. Now your dog is at a point where it's outside looking and going, wait, I thought we were going to train. We're outside. And you're just like, I have a shot at making you feel better because you did get trigger stacked that entire time, right? Now, that being said, it's obviously there's a little more than that. You need a routine, and you're still going to have to take your dog out. But in those situations, the dog needs to believe you're not arguing. Don't fight with your dog. You take your dog out to pee, I tell all my clients, run back. Let your dog think it was your idea to go back home.
Right.
It's race back home. Dog's like, oh, shit, we're on the same page. Yeah, we are, right? And then, like, hurry up, let's go. You'll be shocked what happens in your relationship when your dog thinks you guys agree. Right. I don't like those dogs either. Let's get away. Dog's like, well, you know what? No, you're on my team. But the thing is in the meantime, we're doing other things to build resilience, right? So you have to do something. It's not just going to work by you feeding your dog outside. So what I do is I like to create, and this takes work, they create obstacle courses at home where the dog can go over, under, and through things to get its food or enrichment, right? This helps you measure how your dog feels by looking at those back legs, stretching, is it reaching to get it, or is he just diving right in, right? But what's the most important thing that the dog has during these stressful obstacle courses? It has the free will to do whatever it wants. You have the choice. You can sit here, go over, under, through, or you don't have to, right? And the bottom line is, by watching those choices and giving that dog freedom, you're building confidence.
Right.
And then those stressful obstacle courses will turn from stress into enrichment. And in that process, once it turns into enrichment, put up some sounds on YouTube. Traffic, sirens, dogs bark, done. So this is the stuff you're doing outside of the other stuff. It's a lengthy process, but what we need to understand is when you're dealing with the dog like that, you got two factors. Number one, once the dog gets stressed, it takes the dog an average of 3 days to recover. So if that dog stresses out within 3 days, it's even worse, right? And the second thing is we need to provide lots of enrichment and decompression. A lot of times what happens, a dog gets stressed out as a trigger, we just go and live our life. I'm sorry, but if I piss off my partner, am I just going to go on and live my life? No, I'm going to sit here. Flowers, dinner, spa. Like, I have to make it right. Okay? Our dog, we piss our dog off. You got to make it right. Dog's not just going to get over it, right? So you have to really, in New York City, because of the environment, you have to actively provide this decompression, biological fulfillment, and enrichment.
Now, what is decompression? How do you decompress a city dog?
Licking, sniffing, chewing, right?
Self-soothing.
They don't get to do that. You look at New York City dogs and ask them, hey, who gets to perform natural behaviors? Running, sniffing, digging, licking, chewing? Like, none of them. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm a huge, I know this is terrible, I'm not recommending this for anybody, but I am a huge fan of flexies, right? Because it gives the dog, let me tell you, I have dogs that leash pull. Once I put them on a flexi, they stop pulling the leash. Who'd have thought, right? If your dog doesn't feel restricted and has the freedom to do things, you're going to connect a lot better. They can process the world a lot better. But the problem is with a flexi, rather than anything else, it's 100% motivation because you have no ability for compliance, right? So you better be good to motivate your dog, right?
Right.
And that's it. But again, all these things, the dog feeling it's not restricted, it has the freedom, to make a decision, so on and so forth. Those things are going to build confidence,
right?
And you have that's what these fearful dogs need. And stop touching them so much.
And the leash, one of my podcasts, I said with a caveat, the leash is like the worst invention in mankind. We tether, our dogs feel trapped. Of course, they pull, we pull back. I take a dog that's a leash puller and I'm going to train this dog on my pinky. And it's all about turning, voice, walking in a warrior pose. Don't stare at them. You point your voice in the direction. It's so easy and people can't believe it. But it's, to me.
You're absolutely right.
Right. And then you reward the dog for looking at you, and dogs aren't stupid. They get it. People are like, I walk in, I'm just this, average American woman, and I can take pit bull or otherwise and just train them to, be more self-regulated. I find their constant arousal and the human reinforcement for the constant arousal and the lack of sleep, it's a deadly combination. It's sad for me to see dogs. They're going crazy. And dogs speak with posture. They don't speak with English. So when people say a word and just expect their dog to know what it means and then get frustrated or repeat the command because the dog isn't acting the way they like, it's like if I said, pass the ketchup, ketchup, Brad, I need that ketchup. It would be crazy, right?
It's one of the things I do with all my clients, most of them, I give them 5 words. And I say, these are the 5 words you're going to say to your dog. Is there anything you need to get out of the way before we do this? And they're like, no, we're good. And I tell them, don't say another word but these 5 words, because these 5 words will always predict something. If you go to another country and they constantly speak to you and you don't understand their language, and eventually you're going to filter it out. But if somebody takes you home and doesn't say anything but 5 words to you, we will know those 5 words in an hour. We will feel like there's clarity. I have a lifeline, right? And what happens is, because these people realize they're not supposed to say any other words, they start trying to communicate to their dog in a way their dog understands. So, they're like using body language. And it's
right.
like,
Right.
Every one of them has came back being like, my dog is so much more aware of me, of my movement when I speak. And I'm like, who'd have thought? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's why you pay me the big bucks. Yeah, it's funny. It's all these metaphors are ones I use. If you're a foreigner in a foreign country and everybody's just talking at you and getting frustrated, you don't understand. How would you feel? And what if somebody pointed out like a Beelzebub and just stared at you and shouted a Beelzebub? You don't know what it means.
Yeah.
But if somebody says a Beelzebub, hands you a water bottle or water, then you're like, I got it. I got a word. A Beelzebub means water. And dogs are the same. Dogs are the exact same. So I love all these metaphors we have, and many are the same. And you've given me good ideas, and I've given you good ideas. And
Absolutely.
I'm certainly going to be sending my city people to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I can't straddle both worlds. So that phrase you said, or there was another phrase. The phrase you repeat is focus on what the dogs need versus what you want.
We give the dog what they need to get the dog's needs before the human's wants. Because if we get the dog what it needs, then we will get what the human wants.
Right.
It can't work the other way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If the dog's starving, if the dog has to go to the bathroom or is overtired.
People don't understand that. People have this thing of like the dog's disobedient. No, he's actually giving you information.
Spiteful. Right.
Let me tell you something. Yeah, spiteful. But then we talk about not anthropomorphizing dogs.
Right.
Spiteful. Now, so
pea-sized brain, just a dog.
So yeah, one of the worst things that I deal with, right, is when I follow a trainer that has performed many corrections on a dog, the dog will stop giving me information.
Right,
so
because it's afraid.
Know. Yeah, and that's very difficult. Like, hey, listen, like if your dog doesn't listen to you, it's telling you something. It ain't defiant. You know what I mean?
Right.
When Saga was a puppy, I was training her in different environments, and I told her to down, and she wasn't doing it. And I was like, and I was recording this, and I was like, why isn't she doing it? Why are you doing it? And I'm like, oh, she's never actually trained on this type of surface before. I'm like, she's uncomfortable. I didn't even realize that until I got home. I was so confused. I'm like, do I have to work on my down? No, she was giving me information, and people need to understand that. Like if a dog doesn't listen, it's giving you information. And that information may be that squirrel is more valuable to me. Take that information and figure out how to beat the squirrel.
Right.
That's it. You know what I mean? Case closed.
Right.
I beat the squirrel. You can beat the squirrel.
Right. This has been such an amazing talk. I'm so glad we found you, and
absolutely, I appreciate
you. Come on the show, and I know I'm going to connect with you more. We're so close.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of people that call me from Lower Westchester. Do you go? What's your range?
I do Yonkers. I do White Plains. All over Lower Westchester. I cover Lower Westchester, Bergen County, Queens, Brooklyn. I do 2 days in Brooklyn a month. That's like a trip. I don't really. It's not, but yeah, and all of Manhattan. We cover a decent amount. So every day spent in an area.
Yeah. Now you have trainers that work for you, or is it just you?
This is actually interesting. I had a massive apprentice program. Right.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I train a lot of dog trainers. A lot of people want to understand, extreme emotions in extreme environments.
Right.
Right. I'm not training obedience. It is literally just fear, reactivity, and aggression. And then I have workshops where I do about predation and resource guarding and things like that. So yeah, a lot of my apprentices, yeah, then you'll see them in my videos. They'll sometimes I'll refer them out, so on and so forth. But as far as my team, I just have a couple people that do my schedule, do my admin, because I don't have time for that. You know what I mean? That's
same with me.
It's a lot. It's a lot. You know what I mean? I need to get something on my social media.
Yeah. People start asking them questions. They're like, no, I don't know dog training, but I'm really good with whatever. So funny. Yeah. Get someone for social media. That'll take a big load off.
Oh God.
Trust me.
No, I believe you. I need to get on that, because it's just like you said, it's
well, dogs light up our brain, computers and buttons, not so much.
Absolutely. But thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
Okay. I'll see you out there.
You got it. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.